never mentioned that there were men as dark as this. Wow, look at that nose. He's just like a pig. He's a monster! Hi!
In today's episode, I'm joined by Victoria and Paul Martin. You are a Blasian couple living in Canada. I wanted to thank you for joining me, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And I reached out because you were in a podcast called Color Code, where you discussed your relationship. Now, you mentioned that you two were met in a church, but what attracted you two to each other and made you decide to start dating?
So the funny thing is, we weren't really even looking for, both of us were in a season where we weren't looking for a relationship. And just off the bat, seeing Paul and knowing that he was there, I wasn't even initially attracted to him in that way. And vice versa, I would say, right? Or I don't know, you can share your
part. Well, yeah. I was when I started to get to know her, because our church is pretty diverse as well. So when I started to get to know her, I thought she was just she was attractive, and I didn't think anything much to her either, because I was always attracted to just different types of races. It wasn't just Asian, or it wasn't just black or white. It was just I was attracted to beauty, basically. So I was just like, if I didn't discriminate in that way, and I was blessed enough to grow up in a family that didn't tell me, hey, okay, you need to end up marrying this race only. They just wanted to make sure that the person was a good person, was strong and had a strong relationship with God in that sense, and just had good morale. And so I was attracted to her, got to know we were friends, and it kind of, it's a lot more of that story, but it really was physical attraction there for me that made me want to pursue getting to know her more, even in just a friendship to start.
Yeah, we started out as friends, and I think from there everything happened very organically.
Okay. Had you dated Asian women before, or women outside your race, Paul?
Not Asian women, but I did date outside my race. I did date a couple white girls before, and then but it was also mixed black and white, and I did date another black girl before. So it was all over the place almost.
But not Asian.
But never Asian. I never even thought that I'd ever date an Asian person.
No, the area that Paul grew up in, there's not a lot of Asians in that area.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Do black people usually date outside of their race from what you see, or?
The area that I grew up in, it was, if they did date outside their race, it was normally just like white and black.
Okay.
Or they just stuck with their own race. So, and if you did have date outside your race, white and black, it was at the time, it was kind of exotic. It was like, oh well, you kind of noticed, kind of thing. So, yeah.
And for Victoria, you mentioned in the podcast that you were attracted to black men since high school. What do you think it created that attraction?
Honestly, I feel like just the way I grew up, I could relate to their struggle. I grew up in a white neighborhood, and I liked white guys like in elementary school. But then in high school, it was almost like there was like classism in our school. So the white kids would all hang together. And so, yeah, I felt like I could relate more. I had black friends in elementary school and growing up, and I just felt like I could relate more to them. Okay. And so I guess, yeah, I dated a couple in high school, and then, yeah, they say once you go black, you never go back.
I don't mind that saying. So
barely, it's true. In the podcast, Victoria, you mentioned that your parents were accepting of your relationship with Paul, but your grandmother had issues with you dating black men in the past. Why do you think that your grandmother had those issues?
Oh, my grandmother was old school. Like, she came over to Canada, like, while in her old age, and she didn't speak a lot of English. I could hardly communicate with her because I didn't know Chinese. So she was just very old school in her mentality. And we had one of my cousins was the first one to bring a black woman into the family, and he started dating her. And we saw the reaction that she had when that happened, and it was negative. So I already knew going into the relationship I was in with the father of my girls. When I got pregnant and told her, I knew she wouldn't be too impressed. But yeah, it's a thing where it's almost just like you kind of know, like with her, you weren't supposed to go there,
And for Paul, were your parents accepting of your relationship with Victoria?
Yes. As far as there were no issues because of her race. The main issue was, I guess, there was only one issue that my dad actually, my mom was completely fine, but my dad had a small issue, and it was because she had 2 kids already. So I actually started dating her when she had 2 little girls. So that was the only thing really that he was concerned about, but it was never because she was Asian.
Okay. Have either of you dealt with any forms of discrimination from the greater community in which you guys live?
Yeah, I think growing up, like I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood, so I remember like growing up and kind of trying to deny how Asian I was, you know. Like a lot of the Chinese people at my school were like fobs, as we would say, like fresh off the boat, and they had more of the accents and they were like traditional Chinese. Whereas because I was born and raised in Canada, and my family wasn't so traditional, and my parents were born in Malaysia, so I would say I'm Malaysian. I wouldn't say I'm Chinese, just because you have. I guess everyone as kids, you just you want to fit in. And then of course, you have kids making fun of certain people and how they look, or like Asian people have flat faces, or, like the stereotypes that kids will go ahead and run with. So
I think I misspoke. I meant in terms of the relationship that you have. Like, have you felt discrimination for the relationship? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I mean, in the podcast, I kind of mentioned just a little bit about it. Just because when we got married, we moved to Markham, and she grew up in Markham,
right.
And we moved to a predominantly Asian area, and I felt out of place. Whereas previously I never felt out of place before, because where I grew up, it was mainly like white and black together, and so I was accustomed to that, and so I was never just surrounded where I was a minority. Usually, if I was a minority, it's because the majority were white, and you still sometimes kind of felt awkward at that. But now it's because now there's another minority group, but now they're the majority, and you're still the minority.
Yeah.
So it was a little different. So I remember just feeling uncomfortable, and I never spoke to her like out loud about this, but until she knew the podcast. But it was just going to restaurants, because her family likes to go out to eat all the time at Asian restaurants. And before I started dating her, I was never. I mean, I was going to like North Americanized Asian restaurants, like Mandarin and stuff. So I never actually went to authentic Asian restaurants before. And so I would go out, and I would definitely see the stares, and just like they would see the mixed kids who weren't even mine biologically, but of course they make them mine because they're also my stepdaughters for looking for a relationship. Their dad is actually black as well.
Yeah.
So people thought
they just assume
that, but I would get some stares where you can see them talking to each other, and they're looking at me, and they're looking at the kids.
I never even noticed those
and
things.
And looking, I wouldn't mention it to you, but
yeah.
But that was the first time really I started feeling like, man, this sucks how this feels right now. And then even though you're talking on your back, like maybe they'd be kind of nice and smile, but then it's like that the faces would change when they're talking to maybe their coworker or someone else. So yeah.
I did want to get into that a little bit more, but there was a question I had before that. This was for Victoria. There was a video on YouTube called "Do Asian Canadian Girls Prefer Dating White or Asian Guys?" That's it. Like, that's all the interview is focused on, white or Asian. And it made me think that, when it comes to Asian Canadian women, like, that's usually where it ends. Like, black, Hispanic isn't really in the conversation. Is that something that you see, or do you think that they're, like, Asian women are open in general to dating men of all races? I think Paul has an opinion, but
I think that's pretty accurate in terms of the majority. I know a lot of my Asian friends, they like white guys. Yeah. And I just recently heard of this term, like Sean was telling me. People say, "Oh no, she's Asian for Asian," or "No, she's Asian for white," and that means like who they're interested in, right? So if you're an Asian girl, you're Asian for Asian, you like Asian guys, or if you're Asian for white, you like white guys. But yeah, I know there are a few Asian people I know that would probably be attracted to black guys, but I think the majority, I don't know why. It's just like, it's almost like.
I think I have an assumption why.
I guess it's more acceptable, you know, like I know a lot of Asian parents like to be a bit more traditional, and I guess it's more acceptable to, if you're going to date outside your race, to date a white guy.
Yeah, that's the part that I wanted to get to, because in the podcast, Paul had mentioned, and this is the part that really, this is why I reached out, that Asians seem to be more accepting of white people, and that dating a white person was like making it, and dating a black guy was like going downhill or going to poverty. The part that hit me the most was that he felt, because of that, like the judgment he received from some Asians is that he wasn't good enough. When you heard that, Victoria, how did that make you feel when he said that?
I was upset. I still, when I hear that, I get upset. And I didn't know he felt that way. Like, we had never spoken about it. So hearing that, and again, like, when I guess it's just my personality. When we go out, like, I don't really pay attention to what's going on around us. I'm kind of just focused on us and our family. But I know Paul's more analytical and observant, so he picks up on all of that stuff. I didn't like that, and it made me feel really upset.
Yeah, and it still does with you. Yeah.
And how will you, if you were able to, Paul, overcome that feeling?
I think I was just how I overcame it. I was just myself. So I mean, just continuing to love my kids, love my wife. I think sometimes, especially how I felt with not every person in the Asian community, but I feel like a good amount they give into the stereotypes of when they see different races. As I was saying earlier, like, you know, white people for status, because they're leaders, they have more authority and power in society for the most part. And then what you see maybe on TV or media, where it's not the same as far as, you know, the black culture. It's what you see is like crime or just, you know, laziness, or, you know, just not giving much into society as they should. So, or, you know, some people will say even the term ghetto, just like when you think of that. So, what I did was that, you know, I just continued just to be me and try not to fit that stereotype. And we have 5 kids now, so that's even breaking a stereotype there, where you see, like, in their mind, it would say, well, a black guy still sticking around with 5 kids. You know what I mean? And as a full-time job, and is like just loving his kids. And I mean, there's many of us out there, so it's not even just like I'm a golden horse or whatever. There's a lot, and but you don't see that displayed in the media. It's not portrayed in that way. I believe if we portrayed that more in media, then there'd probably be a shift as far as the mindsets when it came to that type of culture.
Yeah, the media is.
Yeah, I think it's just a lack of awareness, it's just ignorance, really, when it comes down to it.
Yeah. But the media is a very powerful tool. This is for Victoria. What do you have to say to Asians who may not want to interact with, or better yet, date black people for racist reasons?
Oh, what would I even say? I mean, there's more to people. There's more to someone than the color of their skin. Like, get to know someone for who they are as a person. I think I would say that to any racist person. It's like, think about why you have these prejudices against people. And really, it's like we all bleed the same color. At the end of the day, like, race is a social construct. It's like we have all different ethnicities. We come from different nations, especially in a country like Canada, where it's like a melting pot of diversity. I think in this day and age, it's like if you hold racist beliefs or values, it's like, get up with the times, you know. Open your mind a little bit. Like, I think we progressed a lot further than that, but I don't know. I think a lot of it has to do with just getting educated, getting to know people for who they are.
Okay. And a little bit redundant, but overall, what would you say to people who are opposed to interracial dating of any kind?
Well, I would say, I mean, there's beauty in every culture, and get to know the beauty in every culture, not the negativity in it. Because especially because if you meet the person who actually really showcases and highlights that beauty in the culture, it'll open your mind, and you'll actually see the person for who they are, the person, and not the stereotype, not the color of your skin, you know, not maybe the different dialect they speak, but when it comes down to it, and I'm saying it because I dated different races myself, it's like women are women, men are men. In that case, we all have the same desire for love. We all have the same desire to bond with people and to be in community. Despite what, you know, race you are. I think the whole race thing is just from you're being taught that, or someone did bad to you who is that race, so you tie it to that person or to every race. But how can you do that when there's billions of people on this planet and not all of that one race is the same way?
Okay.
Then when you look at little kids, like they'll play with anybody. They don't care what color you are, right?
Perfect example, yeah.
And so they're a good example to follow.
Yeah, racism is taught. It's not like innate. Yeah, it's not. You're not born with it.
For sure.
Okay. So those are all my questions. I don't know if you had anything else to add, but if not, I again wanted to thank you for sharing your experiences.
No, I mean, I guess I'm just redundant, but I mean, it's for anyone who listen to this and maybe has some prejudice or racist feelings or beliefs towards another race. I mean, just get to know the person, because honestly, I think it's when we see more of that love and the less, you know, hate towards a certain group, that's when, you know, the crime rate for one will go down, and it was actually something that will progress society for the better. And I feel strongly about it. So, you know, just that's why I just want to close with an ad, if anything. I don't know if anything you want to add with.
Yeah, no, that was good.
Yeah.